I'm Christina Onnested. The Senate has advanced a gun control measure. The move was late Tuesday. A full vote could occur this week. Nadia Ramlagan reports.
Bipartisan gun bill includes enhanced background checks for those younger than 21, funding for mental health and school safety, incentives for states to implement red flag laws, and limits on the boyfriend loophole. Democratic Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy.
This is a breakthrough. And more importantly, it's a bipartisan breakthrough.
I'm Nadia Ramlagan for Pacifica Network and Public News Service.
It comes amidst pleas to do something in the wake of deadly mass shootings in Buffalo, New York, and Uvalde, Texas. The botched police response to the mass shooting at the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde was the subject of a Texas Senate hearing Tuesday, where the head of the state police said law enforcement had enough officers on the scene to stop the gunman 3 minutes after he entered the school, but it took them nearly an hour to respond. Valette Bilou reports.
There's compelling evidence that the law enforcement response to the attack at Robb Elementary was an abject failure.
Texas State Police Colonel Steve McGraw said officers arrived in the hallway 58 minutes before breaching the door, where the gunman was holed up with children. McGraw confirmed that officers heard gunshots 3 times as they waited for orders to go in. The officers were heavily armed with assault-type weapons and even a large shield. That's contrary to officials' accounts that the officers were armed only with pistols and had to wait for reinforcements. This contradicts the common Republican narrative that the way to stop a bad person with a gun is a, quote, good person with a gun. Several Democrats urged Texas to adopt safety measures to help prevent gun violence. Roland Gutierrez represents Uvalde.
We do have to find common sense gun solutions. When 65% of the Republicans in my community tell me that we need to raise an age limit, I can tell you that an 18-year-old shouldn't be able to go into a store like he's going into a 7-Eleven to buy a Slurpee. And that's what happened here.
I'm Violette Bilou, Pacifica Radio, KPFA.
The House committee investigating the deadly January 6th Capitol attack held its 4th hearing Tuesday. The focus was then President Donald Trump's pressure campaign on state officials and local election workers to overturn the results of the election he lost, with plans that include fake electors. Christopher Martinez reports.
The committee focused on what it describes as Trump's pressure campaign on officials in key swing states, beginning with Election Day attempts to stop the count of mail-in ballots, then urging state legislatures and governors to stop certifying results, then a pressure campaign on state legislatures to certify fake electors supporting Trump, none of which worked. The committee's investigative counsel, Casey Lucier, walked through an account of attempts to count fake electors for Trump, including one involving a Republican Senator, Ron Johnson of Wisconsin.
A staffer for Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson texted a staffer for Vice President Pence just minutes before the beginning of the joint session. This staffer stated that Senator Johnson wished to hand-deliver to the Vice President the fake electors' votes from Michigan and Wisconsin. The Vice President's aide unambiguously instructed them not to deliver the fake votes to the Vice President.
Several election officials told about being the subject of things like mass email and phone campaigns. Shay Moss and her mother, Ruby Freeman, worked in the Department of Elections and Registrations in Fulton County, Georgia. Trump blasted both women, calling Freeman a professional vote scammer and hustler. Later, Moss and her mother were harassed by angry Trump supporters, including death threats. Ruby Freeman gave a video interview to the committee.
There is nowhere I feel safe. Nowhere. Do you know how it feels to have the President of the United States to target you? He targeted me, Lady Ruby, who stand up to help Fulton County run an election in the middle of the pandemic.
The next episode of the January 6th hearings is scheduled for Thursday, when the committee will look at what Chair Thompson describes as Trump efforts to corrupt the Department of Justice. Reporting for Pacifica Radio News KPFA, I'm Christopher Martinez.
Afghanistan state-run news agency says an earthquake in the country's east has killed 1,000 people and injured 1,500 others. The latest figure came from the Bakhtar news agency today. Rescue efforts are likely to be complicated since many international aid agencies have left Afghanistan after the Taliban took over the country last year. In Ukraine, the press freedom group Reporters Without Borders says it believes a Ukrainian photojournalist and a soldier who was accompanying him were coldly executed in Russian-occupied woodlands in the first week of the war in Ukraine. Reporters Without Borders said they found 14 bullet holes in a burned hulk of the dead man's car and items apparently left behind by Russian soldiers. Reporters Without Borders released its findings today and says it's turned over evidence to Ukrainian investigators. In the U.S., President Joe Biden is expected to call on Congress to suspend the federal gas tax for 3 months today. It's expected to ease financial pressures at the pump this election year. Administration officials say Biden wants to suspend the 18-cent a gallon tax on gas and the 24-cent a gallon tax on diesel fuel. Savings could be passed along to consumers at about 3% at the pump. The president visited a vaccination clinic in Washington Tuesday where some of the first shots were given to young children. Starting this week, the nation's youngest, ages 6 months to 5 years, can now receive a COVID-19 vaccine from Pfizer or Moderna. Child COVID vaccinations are low. Some 30% of children have been vaccinated, while 78% of the overall U.S. population is vaccinated. Biden says more funds are needed to help brace for the next coming COVID-19 surge this fall. I'm Christina Onnested reporting for Pacifica Radio.